She thought she was saving her son from drowning. Instead, she was funding a luxury life for her captor. When a devoted mother uncovers the sickening lie behind her family's fake poverty, the terrifying confrontation that follows will shatter your reality. Watch until the very end. Imagine a quiet morning. The comforting aroma of roasted coffee and melted butter fills a sunlit kitchen. On the pristine counter lies a freshly ironed check, bearing the meticulously written amount of $600, signed with a gentle, cursive hand, Barbara. It looks like a cinematic spectacle of maternal devotion, a picture of absolute peace. But what if I told you that beneath this fragile piece of paper lies one of the most terrifying psychological black holes of our modern era? Have you ever stopped to wonder if your unconditional love is actually helping your children grow, or if it is merely funding their ruthless ingratitude? When Family Breaks One warmly welcomes you to a story that will challenge everything you know about family dynamics. If you find yourself captivated by these dark psychological truths, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel and give us the motivation to bring you more profound psychological deep dives in the future. Welcome to the inner world of Barbara, a woman who has dedicated every breathing moment of her life to being the literal definition of a good mother. Widowed far too early, Barbara single-handedly raised her son, Thomas, surviving on the meager wages of exhausting overtime shifts. Now, with silver weaving through her hair and her joints aching fiercely at the slightest change in weather, she continues to sign those $600 checks every single month. The purpose? To help her adult son and his wife, Fiona, pay the mortgage on their picturesque, white picket fence suburban home. She does it with a gentle smile, carrying the naive pride of a mother who instinctively wants to shield her little boy from the harsh realities of a tough economy, completely ignoring the fact that Thomas is now a grown man well into his 30s. From a psychological standpoint, the nightmare Barbara is living is clinically known as invisible financial abuse. It remains invisible precisely because it is so flawlessly camouflaged under the sacred veil of kinship and unconditional sacrifice. When I look at this situation, my heart breaks for Barbara's profound innocence, but simultaneously, a chilling shiver runs down my spine at the masterful manipulation orchestrated by Thomas and, more specifically, Fiona. They do not hold a knife to her throat to rob her. Oh, no. They perform a tragic, Oscar-worthy play of destitution. They whine about their alleged poverty during Sunday dinners, strategically leaving utility bills out on the dining table, sighing heavily about the rising cost of living. They deliberately plant a vague, paralyzing fear in Barbara's mind. If she does not hand over her hard-earned $600, their fragile little family will collapse. And what about Thomas? Thomas is the quintessential spineless enabler, a man who has entirely lost his rationality and autonomy, brainwashed into becoming a docile tool. He is faded, cowardly, dodging his responsibilities as both a man and a son, allowing his wife to pull every single string. He is a victim, yes, but he is undeniably an accomplice. Then there is Fiona, the daughter-in-law with a sugary smile and pitiful eyes, who is, in reality, a brilliant, cold-blooded director. She knows exactly how to exploit Barbara's fatal flaw, a blind, overwhelming love for her son. Fiona is not merely taking money. She is meticulously draining the life force, the dignity, and the twilight peace of an elderly woman, using it to fund a lifestyle completely contradictory to the poverty she so loudly claims. This is the true horror of invisible financial abuse. It leaves no dark bruises on the skin. Instead, it quietly drains your bank account and corrodes your soul from the inside out, all while you smile, genuinely believing you are doing a good deed. But illusions, no matter how carefully constructed, are bound to shatter when the harsh light of reality finally pierces through. It happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, a day that began just like any other, with Barbara taking the bus across town to drop off some homemade stew for her seemingly struggling children. When she arrived unannounced, the garage door was left wide open, revealing not the empty space of a family barely scraping by, but a gleaming, brand-new luxury SUV with dealer plates still attached. Confused, Barbara let herself in through the side door, only to overhear Fiona laughing loudly on the phone in the kitchen. The words paralyzed Barbara where she stood. Fiona was cheerfully boasting to a friend about an upcoming 2-week vacation to a high-end resort in the Maldives, casually mentioning that her sweet, gullible mother-in-law was covering the mortgage again, freeing up their disposable income for the trip. In that single, suffocating moment, the invisible abuse materialized into a crushing physical weight. As a storyteller who has witnessed countless fractured families, I can tell you that the most devastating betrayals do not come with loud explosions. They arrive in the quietest, most mundane moments. Barbara stood in that hallway, looking down at her worn-out shoes and her arthritic hands that had scrubbed floors and typed data entry for decades, suddenly realizing she had not been saving her son from drowning. She had been financing a yacht for his captor. The psychological shock of such a discovery is akin to mourning a death. The son she thought she was protecting, the family she believed she was nurturing, was nothing more than a parasitic mirage. Her unwavering devotion had been weaponized against her, transforming her deep maternal instinct into a self-destructive mechanism. She left the stew on a hallway table and walked back out into the rain, the chilling realization washing over her that the poverty they claimed was merely a theatrical prop designed to keep her trapped in a cycle of endless financial servitude. The moment that sickening realization set in, Barbara faced a choice that would permanently alter the fabric of their family dynamics. When the first of the month arrived, the pristine kitchen counter remained empty. There was no freshly ironed check, no gentle cursive signature, and no quiet sacrifice. When Thomas and Fiona inevitably arrived for their customary Sunday dinner, expecting their usual envelope, Barbara sat at the head of the table with a quiet, terrifying stillness. I want you to imagine the sheer tension in that dining room when she calmly stated that the financial well had run dry. The reaction was not one of understanding or concern for an elderly mother's well-being. Instead, the mask of pitiful destitution slipped, revealing the hideous face of entitlement. Fiona's sugary smile vanished, instantly replaced by a cold, calculating fury. She began to hurl accusations, expertly twisting the narrative to paint Barbara as a selfish, heartless monster who was deliberately trying to ruin their marriage. And Thomas? The quintessential spineless enabler defaulted to his cowardly programming, rather than defending the woman who had bled for him his entire life. He echoed his wife's indignation, weaponizing his own childhood and guilt-tripping Barbara for abandoning him when he needed her most. This is the textbook escalation of an invisible abuser who is suddenly denied their supply. They do not apologize. They go on the offensive. They utilize emotional blackmail, attempting to instill a paralyzing sense of guilt and inadequacy in their victim. For Barbara, watching her son scream at her over a missed payment was the final, agonizing confirmation she needed. The love in that room was entirely conditional, predicated solely on her financial utility. She wasn't a beloved matriarch. She was an atom. The sheer cruelty of their response dismantled the last remnants of her denial. It takes an unimaginable amount of bravery to look into the eyes of the child you raised and accept that he has become a stranger. But in that agonizing moment of confrontation, Barbara finally chose herself over the parasitic illusion she had funded for far too long. Standing amidst the wreckage of her son's supposed affection, Barbara was forced to navigate a profound and solitary grief. The aftermath of cutting off financial abusers is rarely a cinematic victory march. More often, it is a quiet, agonizing period of withdrawal and mourning. For months, Barbara's house was devastatingly silent. The Sunday dinners ceased completely, replaced by a punishing campaign of silence from Thomas and Fiona, a deliberate psychological tactic designed to starve Barbara of affection until she surrendered and reopened her checkbook. As an observer of the human condition, I find this phase to be the most critical and perilous for victims of familial abuse. The urge to cave in, to buy back the illusion of a happy family for the price of $600 a month, is overwhelmingly seductive. Barbara spent many nights weeping in her armchair, questioning if she had been too harsh, battling the deeply ingrained societal conditioning that tells a mother she must sacrifice herself unconditionally until the bitter end. But profound pain often acts as the crucible for profound growth. Slowly, as the weeks turned into months, a delicate but resilient sense of autonomy began to take root in Barbara's soul. She started using her hard-earned money to repair her own decaying roof, to buy the expensive arthritis medication she had been skipping, and to rediscover the simple, long-forgotten joy of living for herself. She had to undergo the immense psychological labor of grieving a living person. She mourned the idealistic version of Thomas she held in her heart, accepting that the helpless little boy she wanted to protect was gone, replaced by a complicit adult who had chosen comfort over his mother's dignity. In this excruciating silence, Barbara found her armor. She realized that setting a boundary was not an act of malice, but the most profound act of self-love, and ironically, the only true way to force her son to finally face his own adulthood. This painful journey through deception and heartbreak ultimately leads us to a profound, universal truth about the nature of true devotion. The tragic yet empowering story of Barbara forces us to hold up a mirror to our own relationships and ask uncomfortable questions about the boundaries of our generosity. Invisible financial abuse thrives in the dark corners of our guilt and our desperate desire to be needed by the ones we love. It wears the mask of family duty, convincing us that self-destruction is a noble virtue. But true love, healthy and functional love, never demands your dignity or your twilight peace as a prerequisite for affection. Sometimes, the most loving thing a parent can do is to tightly close the checkbook and let their children experience the unyielding gravity of the real world. By refusing to fund Thomas and Fiona's opulent illusion, Barbara stopped being their enabler and finally became their teacher, even if the lesson cost her their physical presence. Her story is a testament to the fact that it is never too late to reclaim your worth, no matter how many years you have spent sacrificing it at the altar of someone else's entitlement. If Barbara's journey resonated with you, or if it opened your eyes to the subtle manipulations happening in your own life, I urge you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know how you would have handled Fiona and Thomas. Thank you for walking through this dark psychological landscape with When Family Breaks One, and remember to subscribe as we continue to unmask the hidden truths of family dynamics. Until next time, guard your heart and guard your boundaries. Barbara's harrowing journey serves as a powerful testament to the destructive nature of invisible financial abuse within families and the extraordinary courage required to break free from its grip. For years, she operated under the illusion that her relentless sacrifices were rescuing her struggling son, only to face the crushing reality that her unconditional love was being exploited to fund a lavish lifestyle she could never afford for herself. The true tragedy did not merely lie in the financial deception, but in the devastating revelation that her son and daughter-in-law viewed her not as a cherished mother, but as an exploitable resource. When she finally severed their financial lifeline, the immediate fallout was brutal. She was met, not with gratitude for her decades of sacrifice, but with vicious entitlement, emotional blackmail, and a punishing silence intended to break her resolve. Yet, in the quiet, agonizing isolation of her grief, Barbara found her ultimate strength. She navigated the immense psychological labor of mourning the idealistic version of the son she thought she knew, ultimately realizing that true self-respect required walking away from this parasitic dynamic. Her story concludes not as a tragedy of a fractured family, but as a triumphant reclamation of autonomy. By closing her checkbook, she stopped enabling their deceit and started prioritizing her own neglected well-being, proving that setting firm boundaries is the ultimate act of self-preservation and the truest form of tough love. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional compliance or endless self-sacrifice. True affection should never require you to compromise your dignity, your financial security, or your mental peace. When someone's presence in your life is entirely dependent on what you can provide for them materially, that is not love. It is exploitation masked as familial duty. Evaluate the relationships where you feel constantly drained or obligated. Start setting clear, firm boundaries regarding your finances, your time, and your emotional energy. Pay close attention to how people react when you finally say, no. A healthy relationship will respect your limits, while an exploitative one will respond with guilt-tripping, anger, or the silent treatment. Do not let societal conditioning or manipulative guilt convince you that prioritizing your own basic needs makes you selfish. Secure your own well-being first, whether that means tending to your health, securing your retirement, or protecting your peace of mind, before offering your resources to others. Have you ever had to say no and set a difficult financial or emotional boundary with a loved one, and how did they react? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below so our community can read your perspectives and learn from one another. If this story resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Your subscription gives us the motivation to keep producing high-quality, meaningful content that unmasks the hidden truths of relationships.